Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
I'm Sam Benedict. Come on in, Mrs. Stone. Nobody's going to hurt you. Oh, this is my associate, Hank Tabor, Mrs. Stone.
How do you do? Why don't you sit here? It's all right.
Hi, Jerry.
Morning, Mr. Benedict. Mr. Tabor, nice day.
Hi, Jerry.
I'm sorry I couldn't get here sooner, Mr. Benedict.
I'm sorry you didn't contact me sooner. This hearing has been scheduled for some time. The State Department of Social Welfare should have notified you when they filed a consent to the petition for adoption. Did they?
Yes, but,
Did you answer it in any way?
no.
In other words, you didn't file any formal protest when you heard officially that these people wanted to adopt your boy?
No, not then. I wasn't sure then.
I don't understand that.
I'm sure now.
Well, I'm not. I don't think you're certain in your mind what you want to do. I think there'll be some doubt in the court's mind, too.
I want him back, Mr. Benedict. I do. Please don't let them take him away from me.
Well, I can ask for a continuance, but frankly, I don't think we...
Sam. Frank Drucker, remember me?
Yes, of course, Frank. Nice to see you again.
Hello, Frank. How are you?
Tabor.
Mrs. Stone, Mr. Drucker.
You might have given me a ring, Sam, and tell me you were representing Mrs. Stone and that she'd be here today.
Well, I didn't know myself until today. What difference does that make?
Oh, boy.
Does he know who you are? When was the last time you saw him?
6 years ago. They made him a ward of the court.
Why?
I was serving a jail sentence at the time.
On what charge? Come on, look at me when I talk to you. What was the charge?
Addiction. I was in jail for addiction.
Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the City and County of San Francisco, Department 58, is now in session. The Honorable Alan Copeland, Judge presiding. Be seated. Please remain silent. No smoking.
In the matter of the petition of Walter P. Franklin and Sarah H. Franklin for the adoption of William F. Stone, a minor.
Ready for the petitioner, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I am appearing for Mrs. Teresa Stone. Mrs. Stone only recently asked me to represent her in this matter to contest the petition.
Bailiff, remove the child, please. This is Teresa Stone, I take it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Am I to understand, Mrs. Stone, that you are here today to contest this petition for the adoption of your son?
Yes, Your Honor. I want my son back.
Your Honor. Mrs. Stone has had ample time to make her intentions known to the court before this. She is here at the peril of the child and of my client. And on the very day the court is prepared to rule on the petition.
The court shares your indignation, Mr. Drucker. I regard the adoption of a child in the very gravest light, Mr. Benedict, and I sincerely hope that your appearance here today with Mrs. Stone is not a matter of tactics.
And I agree with the court's attitude towards the adoption proceeding, Your Honor. For that reason, and because I haven't had an opportunity to discuss the case with Mrs. Stone, I would ask for a continuance of this matter until such time as I have had an opportunity to acquaint myself with the facts of the case.
I protest, Your Honor. I protest Mr. Benedict's motion with all the vehemence at my command. If a continuance is granted, that boy who was sent from this courtroom will suffer. He is perfectly aware of the nature of these proceedings. His foster parents have very wisely never kept one thing from him. He came here today to hear the court pronounce his adoption. He's looked forward eagerly to it.
The court is painfully aware of the anticipation of the boy and of the feelings of the petitioner in this matter, Mr. Drucker.
And I agree with Mr. Drucker, Your Honor, that the most concerned party is the child. But I hardly agree that a continuance of a short time that would allow us all to fairly evaluate the case could do all the harm that Mr. Drucker so vividly describes.
Gentlemen, I think we've all had quite a surprise here this morning, and I think we're all being rather vivid.
Your Honor, before you rule on Mr. Benedict's motion, I must inform the court that Teresa Stone was declared habitually intemperate and morally depraved 6 years ago. She deserted her child without provision for his care or custody or support. She has had 6 years in which to reclaim him. Never once in all that time has she been seen or heard from. Now, for her to come here at this last moment in this dramatic way and try to foist herself back into her child's life is outrageous and irresponsible.
Would you care to withdraw your petition, Mr. Benedict, so that the court can rule on this adoption right now? Well, Mr. Benedict?
According to the laws of this state, Your Honor, and the laws of humanity, the natural mother can hardly foist herself upon the affections of the child that she has brought into the world.
In that case, this matter will be continued over for 2 weeks from today at 10 o'clock. Court is adjourned.
Come on. I'll be very frank with you, Mr. Stone. I appeared for you in court this morning without knowing the ramifications of your act. I don't think I'd do the same thing again, knowing what I know now.
Please, Mr. Benedict, I am very grateful you did appear. I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you sooner. Well, my working hours have been very difficult lately.
Where do you work, Mrs. Stone?
At St. Vincent's Hospital.
And what do you do there?
I'm a medical secretary.
Are you prepared financially to retain me?
Well, I can't afford not to. I'll make some arrangements with the bank.
Opposing counsel will try for a proof of abandonment. From what I heard in court this morning, they've got it. Did you abandon your boy 6 years ago?
Well, I couldn't help myself. I was sick.
You mean you were taking narcotics?
Yes.
Are you married?
No.
Why do you wear that ring and call yourself Mrs. Stone?
I am Mrs. Stone. I find it simpler to live this way. You see, my husband left me several years ago.
Are you a drug addict now?
No, I'm not.
How much of a habit did you have?
6 to 8 papers of H a day.
What?
Heroin.
How much does that cost you?
6 to 8 papers, $10 a paper, $70 to $80 a day.
How'd you pay for it? Trudy, get me the health and safety code.
Are you under any sentence now or probation or anything like that?
No. I haven't been since last August.
What kind of probation?
I was on the Naline program.
Oh, go on.
I reported to the city health office 4 times a month for tests, and, it was a condition of my probation.
Hank, are you familiar with the Naline test?
Yes, it's a chemical, isn't it? Something to detect recent use of opiates?
Have you had a Naline test since you were on probation?
No.
Would you be willing to go to the city health officer right now and take one? Well?
I think I could take one more test, yes.
Good.
I'll take you over, Mrs. Stone.
Thank you.
I'll be right with you. Aren't you being a little rough on her?
I'm always rough on addicts. They're not my favorite clients.
She's not an addict. She's the boy's natural mother.
Who abandoned him in favor of the needle. That's the record. And there's nothing in that record to show that she's a fit mother.
We know what she was. Now it's our job to prove what she is. If you don't take this case, Sam, I will.
Type that stuff up, Trudy.
Yes, sir.
He's got to stop putting his heart in front of the law, Trudy.
I think she deserves a chance, Mr. Benedict.
So does that boy, Trudy.
Just relax. Now, this test is devised to detect addiction, Mr. Tabor. Something like an occasional opiate wouldn't have any effect on her. Now, although we rely on pupillary dilation, the Naline will produce abstinence syndromes, such as nausea, vomiting, goose flesh, very fast.
I see. Would it be all right if I talk to her?
Why not?
Would you like one of these?
Yes, please. Thank you. You can't help looking at my eyes.
I'm afraid I can't, Mrs. Stone.
That's perfectly natural. You know, when I had to take these tests, I always brought a mirror along. Not that I could really tell anything. How do they look?
Okay so far. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
Yes, you did.
Why do you want your boy to come live with you now?
Because I love him.
How do you know?
He's part of me, Mr. Tabor.
He's also part of another home, another set of people. People who've given him their love for a good long time. Did you see that woman in court today?
Yes, I've thought about that. I've thought about her and her husband.
How do you know he'll accept you if he comes to live with you now? How do you know he'll want to be with you?
In a life like mine, Mr. Tabor, the target is always over the hill. I'm very lonely. I have been most of my life. Now I accept every day for what it is. Not for what it can be or will be, but simply for what it is. I misinformed you when I said I hadn't seen my little boy in 6 years. I've seen him several times. When he hasn't seen me. I've waited outside of his school occasionally to watch him come and go. I've been lucky enough to see him go in or out of his house, riding his bicycle, playing. I haven't touched him or spoken to him or held him since he was a little baby. And I'd like to very much now. I don't know whether he'll want me or accept me. I don't know about him. I do know about me. I want him.
No lacrimation. No rhininitis. No oral crisis. No trouble. Okay.
Mr. Benedict?
Yes.
The doctor's expecting you.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Benedict's here. Go right in.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Kozlenko. How are you, Mr. Benedict?
Fine, Doctor, thank you.
Coffee?
No, thanks, not right now.
Sit down.
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
Well, I'd like to find out whether Teresa Stone is responsible enough and capable enough of taking care of her son.
Sure she is, Mr. Benedict. What else?
I'm talking about her habit.
So am I.
Will she go back to it?
I don't know. I hope not. I pray not. Her desire and psychological dependency for narcotics will never leave her. I can't guarantee anything.
What can you guarantee?
2 things. That she would come to me if she relapsed, and that I would help her.
It doesn't help me.
Let's you and me have a smoke. Teresa tells me that you don't know whether or not you'll take the case.
I've been trying to make up my mind about that. From what you tell me, you don't know whether she's going to walk in here tonight popped to the ears.
On the other hand, I have no reason to believe that she will, Mr. Benedict. I'd take the case if I had a law degree hanging up there. The important thing is that Mrs. Stone is off narcotics now, and she stayed off for 4 years. If I wanted to put any one person at the head of my class of addicts, she'd be there.
How did you get mixed up in this business?
This? A few years ago, a patient came to me, fresh off the habit. He said he was controlling the craving with meth.
What's that?
Methamphetamine. It's an antidepressant.
Use that?
Help yourself. I knew very little about it, and addicts then. I think I can fill a book right now.
Exactly how do you treat these addicts?
Like human beings. One of the most catastrophic things that can happen to a human being is to become addicted to heroin.
Hello, Trudy.
Excuse me.
Mr. Tabor in?
Not right now, Mr. Benedict. Oh, just a minute. Mr. Benedict.
Hi. Photostat of her criminal record. She has $2,200 in her bank account and an A1 credit rating. Her landlord says she's quiet and respectable. Spends most every evening at home. No indication of any men friends.
Why not? She's a good-looking woman.
Maybe all she's interested in is getting back her son. Sam, I spent 3 days investigating this woman. You're not giving her the time of day, are you?
Not yet, I'm not.
How you feeling, Charlie? Fine, Doctor. This is Dr. Benedict. He's interested in this field.
How do you do, Doctor?
A pleasure.
How's the family, Charlie?
Fine, Doctor. Just fine and dandy.
I'm glad to hear that. Charlie's come off a 20-year habit.
Is that right?
That's right, Doctor.
What was your top habit, Charlie?
2 spoons a day. Good stuff, too.
How much did that cost you?
$120, $150 a day. Costs a little more now.
Business all right?
Can always be better.
What kind of business you in?
I'm an accountant, Doctor. Have my own firm.
How much did you get last time, Charlie?
3 a day.
Okay, now you're down to 2 a day.
But, Doc, I don't know if
Try it, Charlie, and see what happens. Give me a call any time of day or night if you have to. Otherwise, be here Wednesday about 5.
Nice knowing you, Doctor.
A pleasure.
Charlie will fill the prescription, go home, give himself the shots. Substitute therapy for the heroin he used to take. Stops the craving, keeps the monkey off his back. I prescribe all he needs, but I try to keep it to a minimum. The desire to quit is to come from within, not from this stuff.
Does it work?
This and a little talk. He used 15 a day when he first started.
Tell me, could I get him or someone like him to testify for me?
I could ask him, but I'd rather not.
Why not?
Well, Charlie and most of these addicts have had their troubles with the law and with society. They resent the authority of it. But I don't represent any of these things, so they'll talk to me. I'll let them know right away that I consider addiction an illness.
I know a lot of police and enforcement officers would argue that point with you, Doctor.
Bring them on, Mr. Benedict. It's time somebody regarded the addict as a sick person and not as a furtive rat who runs in and out of alleys. They aren't fiends or perverts. They have hearts and souls and bodies and
little boys. Tell me something. Would you go into court and testify for me that Mrs. Stone is cured?
Cured is an ambiguous word.
Well, I'd have to have something close to it if I were going to plead her case.
All right. I'll testify she's cured if you let me qualify.
How?
As tuberculosis is arrested, so is her addiction. But more than that, she's cured because she believes that nobody can be really sure they're cured. If the addict tells me I'll stay away from narcotics for 24 hours, and after that, maybe I'll stay away another 24, he's on the way to being cured. But if he says forever, no, that puts too much pressure on him. Forever is too long a promise to make.
Use that phone again?
You're still there, Mr. Benedict.
Trudy, let me talk to Hank, please. Hank, I want to continue on Mrs. Stone's case. Move to reopen the custody matter, and then we'll move to consolidate that matter with this hearing on the adoption petition.
Good, Sam. I'm glad. Trudy, I need a different wording on this,
I'd like to see Mr. Benedict, please.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry, Mr. Benedict isn't in right now. Mrs. Franklin, I'm sure your lawyer advised you not to discuss this with anyone.
Why, after all of this time, does this woman see fit to try to take Billy away from us?
I'm sorry, I can't discuss it with you.
Do you know that the sudden terror of it just hit me today? I really might lose Billy. Does that seem fair to you?
Mrs. Franklin, don't you think it's fair that every side be heard in this matter? Don't you think Mrs. Stone has a right to be heard?
I'm reluctant to agree to anything like that. I suppose that's very selfish of me. But I want Billy to stay with me forever.
I understand that.
My husband's in Europe now. But we won't let this happen. I'll fight for Billy. With everything I've got. And in every way I can.
Hello, Billy. It's rather late for you to be here.
Are you my mother?
Yes,
I've already got a mother.
I know.
What do you want me for?
Because I love you. And I'm very lonesome for you.
I don't want any other mother.
Billy?
I want to warn all parties that the welfare of young William Stone is the utmost and primary concern of this court. The adults in the case are of secondary importance. Because of the anticipated nature of the testimony, this hearing is limited to the adults involved. As a further precaution, this hearing is closed in accordance with the policy of offering protection to the juvenile involved. All right, Mr. Drucker.
Your Honor, it is our conviction that Mrs. Stone abandoned her child 6 years ago, and that she was not then and is not now a fit or useful mother. And I offer photostatic copies of her arrest and conviction in this city, and a certified copy of the juvenile court order, removing the boy from Mrs. Stone's custody and control.
Your Honor, we stipulate as to the content of these records.
Very well. Proceed, Mr. Drucker.
Anson James Holliday.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the matter pending before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your name, address, and occupation, please.
Anson James Holliday, 8417 Divisadero Street, San Francisco. Until I retired, I was with the Federal Narcotics Bureau for 20 years.
Would you tell the court some of your various duties as an agent of the Bureau?
Certainly.
Your Honor, I am very familiar with Mr. Holliday. I stipulate as to his career qualifications.
Proceed.
Do you know Mrs. Stone at the contestants' table?
Yes, I do.
Would you tell the court how and when you first met Mrs. Stone?
She'd been arrested by the San Francisco Police Vice Squad. This was a number of years ago.
On what charge, Mr. Holliday?
647. Vagrancy, soliciting. In cases such as these, the police sometimes call in the Federal Narcotics Bureau.
You were called in by the San Francisco Police?
Yes. We investigated her apartment, found a supply of heroin, a hypodermic kit, which Mrs. Stone later admitted to be hers.
What condition was the apartment in when you arrived there?
Well, it looked as if it hadn't been cleaned for months. Empty food cans all over the place. It was filthy.
What else did you find there?
We found her little boy, alone and sick. He seemed to be suffering from a very bad cold. And it appeared that he hadn't been taken care of for a long time.
What did you do?
Well, I changed his diaper, I cleaned him up, and put him in custody of the juvenile authorities for care and treatment.
And after that, Mr. Holliday?
After that, I asked that the charges against Mrs. Stone be dismissed, be dropped.
Did that happen?
Yes. She was sent to the Federal Narcotics Hospital at Lexington, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Could you describe the type of treatment that she received while she was there?
Yes, she was given amphetamine, which is a non-addicting narcotic, to help the patient withdraw. After 2 weeks, she was considered completely withdrawn and kept under surveillance for 6 months. Fresh air, good food, that sort of thing. And then she was released on probation.
What happened during her probation period?
The San Francisco police force picked her up again for narcotics addiction.
How soon after her release from the hospital?
It was about 5 weeks.
And then what?
Well, she was taken back to the federal hospital again, given similar treatment, released again after about a year. Within 3 months, she was picked up by the police again.
Addiction?
Addiction.
How many people, patients, would you say are admitted to our federal narcotics hospital, say, over a period of a year?
Well, about 3,500 who commit themselves voluntarily a year, and another 500 that are committed by the courts.
Now, these 4,000 some odd addicts, how many would you say are ever completely cured of addiction?
I personally have never seen a single one.
No further questions, Your Honor. Your witness, Mr. Benedict.
Mr. Holliday, do you think that Mrs. Stone can be cured?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you think any addict can be cured?
No, sir.
What do you think ought to be done about the problem of narcotics addiction?
Bigger laws, tougher laws, strict enforcement.
Oh. How many cures do you know have been affected by punishment?
None that I know of.
And none by hospital treatment, such as that at the federal hospital?
No, sir.
Tell me, do you regard addiction as a crime or as a disease?
Well, it is a crime.
Why?
People like this are always in trouble with the law. They're committing all sorts of crimes to get narcotics.
Are they in trouble because they are addicts or because they are professional criminals?
Well, they are addicts.
You're aware that many medical and legal authorities feel that this is a health problem?
Yes, sir.
You don't agree with these people?
No. They don't agree with themselves.
Then it's a dilemma, huh?
No, not to me.
Tell me, you don't know of any cured cases, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You must be aware of the Attorney General's report, the Bradley report, on narcotic addiction.
Yes, sir.
Well, then you must be acquainted with the statistic that over 98% of those who are given enforced treatment or hospital treatment return to their addiction.
98.4, I think.
Right. Then you must also be acquainted with the corollary statistic, which states that 1.6% never return to their addiction.
Yes, sir.
Well, then how can you say there are no cured cases? How can you say that that woman there, Mrs. Stone, is not a member of that small minority who, by a supreme force of will, have never returned to their addiction?
Well...
No further questions. Mrs. Franklin, the boy is aware of the nature of this proceeding, is he not?
Oh, yes.
Is he confused? Shocked? What?
Oh, I wouldn't say that he was confused or shocked. Mostly, I would say that he's curious.
Curious?
Mr. Benedict, I've never tried to misrepresent myself as Billy's natural mother. I respect him too much to misinform him about anything.
Have you informed him of Mrs. Stone's background?
Oh, no, certainly not. That would be vicious and cruel.
You're a very remarkable woman. Thank you. How did you get started on narcotics, Mrs. Stone? Was it a medical accident? A moment of great pain in your life? What?
It wasn't any of those things. When I was young, about 15 or 16, I used to think it was grown up to smoke and drink. And, well, I did. One night at a party, some boys offered me a different kind of smoke, a reefer.
That's marijuana.
Yes. It made me feel like a queen, and I smoked them several times, and then I wanted something more. And one night I took a joy pop.
And that's heroin.
Yes.
How old were you at the time?
Oh, 17.
Did anybody force you to take the heroin or what?
No, nobody forced me. They simply asked, and I did. I was hooked in 3 weeks.
Were you working at the time or going to school?
I was working. I was living with an aunt of mine. My parents had died the year before. My aunt died a few months later.
So you were 17 with a dope habit and alone in the world. Tell me, what was it like being on dope? Did it stimulate you? Give you a greater emotional capacity? Power? A sense of well-being? What?
Well, you get a smack or a flash. It's a complete separation from everything. A kind of eternal floating happiness. And when it wears off, you get very sick. And you need more.
That's why they call it a smack.
Yes.
Why did you quit? Was it a sudden inspiration, some special feeling? Just what was it, Mrs. Stone?
Money.
Money?
Yes, it cost so much to support my habit, and it was getting harder and harder for me to get the stuff. I had to do something.
You're employed as a medical secretary at St. Vincent's Hospital, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me, do they know about your record of narcotics addiction?
Well, a few people, yes.
Did it make it difficult for you to get a job?
I didn't tell them about my record at first.
Well, explain that.
I was on a 3-year probation, and I took a job at the hospital as a nurse's aide. I emptied bedpans and made beds and scrubbed the floors.
Excuse me. Were you taking dope at the time?
No. I had just finished a 6-month jail sentence, and I was trying to stay off.
Go on.
One night at the hospital, I found a young intern sneaking some drugs. I could tell he was getting hooked. We talked, and...
And you revealed yourself?
Yes. And the administrator knew Dr. Koslenko, and he arranged for us to meet. I started the meth treatment right away. Eventually, I went to school to try to improve myself.
Did you feel that the treatments were successful?
Well, it was a struggle every day. But I'm used to a struggle every day.
You heard Mr. Holliday's testimony. Do you agree with it?
I agree that everything and anything should be done to prevent addiction.
Whatever steps?
Yes. So they don't end up the way I did.
I understand that you were confronted by your son the other day. What did he say to you?
He said he didn't want another mother.
How did you react to that?
Well, I was heartbroken. But I determined to overcome his feelings and be a real mother to him, if I had a chance.
Can you support him?
Yes.
Take care of his schooling and his medical expenses?
Yes.
Thank you.
If you are unsuccessful in your attempt to regain custody, what will you do? Well, Mrs. Stone.
A long time ago, I promised myself to live for the day, Mr. Drucker. And it works for me. I face only the day.
When was the last time you used narcotics, Mrs. Stone?
Almost 4 years ago.
And when was the last time you felt any desire for them?
The last time I had a problem I wasn't able to solve.
In these last 24 hours, Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
That's all, Your Honor.
You're excused. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Benedict?
We have heard Dr. Kozlenko's prognosis. We have heard Mrs. Stone's completely candid testimony. We have every reason to believe that she is completely rehabilitated and that her cure is permanent. She is the child's natural mother. She and only she should be responsible for guiding him to manhood.
Mr. Drucker?
Your Honor, Mrs. Stone has a long record of addiction and abandonment. On the other hand, Mr. and Mrs. Franklin have a long record of providing the child with an environment under which he has flourished. Now, is he to remain in that environment, or will he be returned to the unknown terrors from which he escaped as an infant?
Thank you, Mr. Drucker. Bailiff. I want first of all to say that I am overwhelmed at the display of discretion on the part of counsel for both parties. And I congratulate them upon their presentation of uncolored facts in this matter. I am also overwhelmed by the gravity of the task remaining before me. The choice that I am called upon to make is a difficult one, which will of necessity cause pain and anguish to someone. Frankly, I recoil from that consequence because it is no wish of mine to cause even a moment's pain to either of you. Hello, Billy. Billy, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Do you like your home now?
Yes, sir.
Your school? Are you happy, Billy?
Yes, sir.
Do you know that lady there?
Yes, sir.
Do you know why she's here today?
It's about me. She wants to take me home to live with her.
And how do you feel about that, Billy? You don't know? All right, Billy. Mr. Drucker?
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Billy, you can run along now. Only don't leave chambers this time. My inclination is to take this matter under consideration. But because the law is inexorable in a situation such as this, I must make a ruling. It is by now well established that the natural parent of a child has the paramount right to custody unless affirmatively unfit. It is also important to note that present and not past fitness is the controlling situation. There is a wisdom to these considerations that has been tempered by years of trial and experience. From what I have seen and heard in this courtroom today, and from the mass of the affidavits that have been presented to me, I now believe that Teresa Stone is ready to resume proper custody of her son. Therefore, I now revoke the court order that once declared her unfit, and I dismiss this petition for adoption. Further, I hereby direct that William Stone be returned to the care, custody, and support of his natural mother, subject to the following condition: that for a period of 2 years, she subject herself to a regular weekly schedule of investigation by the probation officer of the State Department of Social Welfare, and that she reinstate herself on the Naline program for the same period of time.
Agreeable, Your Honor.
The ruling that I have just made is one of the most difficult in all my years on this bench. I know that in the indulgence of your own heart and conscience, Mrs. Franklin, you came here today prepared to accept the dictates of our laws. I can only say that I have interpreted them to the very best of my knowledge and ability. Court is adjourned.
He's all yours now.
Thank you, Mr. Benedict.
Thank him.
I want to thank you for all you've done for him.
For many years, I had nothing but contempt for you, Mrs. Stone. And when I finally saw you, I had nothing but hatred. Now I have the greatest admiration.